Oi, mates. Welcome back to another episode of Toast. Okay, I'm not going to do a horrible Australian accent and do this episode with my normal accent. So, we're on my spring break and we're going through. We just did Whitsunday Islands and everything has been awesome so far. Now, as you guys know, the end destination of this trip is actually Cairns, which is kind of one of those places that you don't want to spend too much time, but there's so many activities that are centered out of there that you end up spending a lot of time there. So we ended up spending a lot of time there. Cairns was a bit of a shit show because I guess different relationships kind of started maybe pulling people in different directions. You know, some people went to Fraser Island. We're talking about it, maybe boasting about it. We had a couple French people. What do you want? It kind of just like started pushing and pulling the group a little bit, and it was our last destination, so there was no obligation for us to all stick together. So what ended up happening was in the hostel that we stayed at, there was a poker tournament. And so most of the dudes were just like, all right, cool. Like, we're all tired from bussing around and we don't want to spend too much money. So this poker tournament, I think it was like $20 entry. It's a lot cheaper than it would be to go out and drink in Australia, right? Because if any of you guys know anything about Australia, then you know that it's an expensive place. So needless to say, the $20 at the poker tournament and maybe a few beers at the hostel at debonair or convenience store prices was a bit of a better deal than going out. So plus you get to play poker and possibly win money. So there's also that chance. Why I mentioned this poker is not just to say that, hey, hostels are cool places where you could play poker, but they are. While we were playing poker, I was kind of like joking around because there was one Austrian guy who sounded a lot like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and not just because he had a German accent and he spoke, or an Austrian accent and was speaking English normally, but actually he had a very strong Austrian accent and actually spoke like Arnold Schwarzenegger. So then I started imitating Arnold Schwarzenegger. So we started imitating Arnold Schwarzenegger, and as I kind of got like eliminated at some point from the tournament, me and this other guy were kind of, bonding over the accent, and we were kind of joking around. And the German guys or the Austrian guys were actually taking it quite well. So they said, it is true. He does kind of sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger. So we weren't being horrible 21-year-old racists or anything, or at least we weren't trying to be. And anyways, while I was talking to this guy, he was actually running the tournament, so he had to stay there. I was like thinking, hey, maybe we just go out for beers. Could probably find the girls somewhere at one of the tourist bars. And then, I don't know, he was just organizing this tournament, so he had to stay there. And we started talking about New Zealand, and he was planning on going to New Zealand. And this is, if you watched that second New Zealand episode 2 episodes ago, you'll know that video, that GoPro video of me jumping came in handy at some point. And this is the moment. So I was playing poker, and, he starts telling me about like how he really wants to do this Nevis bungee, which is the bungee that I did. He said that some dude that he met while he was traveling actually showed him a video, and it just looked so fucking awesome. Ends up that he met my buddy Sonny after I had met him after I had left Sonny in New Zealand. Sonny continued traveling, I think, for another week or something. And he ran into this guy, I think his name is Chris, and they ended up like bonding, and he showed him my video because it was on Sonny's GoPro. I didn't have my own, that he filmed it. So this guy had actually seen a video of me jumping, and that inspired him to go. And so we started bonding, and it was just like how crazy small of a world. We took pictures, we sent it to Sonny, be like, yo, look who it is. Absolute, it's just a bit of coincidence, because not only like do you possibly run into different people who've met other of your friends while you're traveling, but for it to actually come up in conversation, and for this guy, Chris was actually mentioning my video to me. He brought it up. I didn't even bring it up. He brought it up, and it ended up being my video. It was just a weird moment. And the reason why this, topic came up wasn't just because he had been to New Zealand and was planning to like move there, but also because he wanted to bungee jump, and there's a bungee jump there in Cairns. And I had a friend who really wanted to bungee jump, and I really wanted to skydive. And I didn't really care about bungee jumping because I'm like, I already did a bungee jump that was like way bigger than that one, right? Like, I don't really care what kind of, wipe the dust off my shoulders. It was a little bit of an ego trip, but also when you need to spend another $150, if I have to choose, or $300, I think it was, if I have to choose between one or the other, like, I'm going to choose the one that I haven't done. And I know I told you that skydiving isn't as scary, but I still had to skydive. I still had to do it to see if it was scarier. That's the way that I wanted to know. And what ended up happening, and I got super, super lucky, is because this guy Chris worked at that hostel, he was able to give us 50% off on whatever excursion I did, so long as I could bring another person to do it. So basically, we were getting 2 for 1. He would charge us the price of one, and 2 of us would be able to go. So that was pretty easy, because then I just needed to find somebody who wanted to either, to skydive with me with just like half the cost. And so what ended up happening is I found somebody who wanted to skydive with me, and we ended up going. And so this was actually a buddy who ended up becoming one of my closest friends when I was in Australia. His name's Charles. He's from France. He's a really fucking cool guy. And so we ended up, and I ended up going to Vietnam with him and everything. So you guys will hear about that when I start talking about Vietnam. There's some serious stories over there. With Charles, I convinced him, like, he wanted to go bungee jumping. I wanted to go skydiving. I'm like, hey, dude, if we go skydiving, we get it half price. So it's $150 instead of $300, because, we get to split the cost of that one person or one admission. And so he was down, and we ended up skydiving. It was an amazing experience. It's a bit of like this dauntingly scary experience, kind of like what I was saying at Airlie Beach, knowing that this Great Barrier Reef is kind of getting blanched or bleached as time goes and as water's warm. But from that sky, skydiving in Mission Beach, which is, kind of where they bring you from Cairns, you can see like a big portion of the Great Barrier Reef. So it's just like this amazing, like beautiful sight that's just like out of this world, beach, kind of coast down the middle, and all of these like coral reefs, which don't really look like much, but you could still you still see them from the sky. And then on the other side, it's kind of like these small, almost mountains, little hills that Australia has. And there, at that time, there were actually a bit of like forest fires. So we had a little bit of smoke, blocking the way every once in a while. We'd kind of go through different layers of it while skydiving. So it was actually a really cool experience for all of those reasons, because, well, you get to see the Great Barrier Reef from a different standpoint. You get to skydive, and you also get to experience, a bit of the reality of Australia, which is, wildfires or bushfires, as they would call them, that kind of just tear through the country annually, as we have them in North America, California, BC, Alberta kind of area. We have fires every year. They have fires every year. Particularly, in 2019, 2020 season for Australia was very bad. But it was kind of cool to just like know that that's, part of their culture, part of the things that they're used to, part of the risks of living there. And, no place, even Australia, is a perfect paradise. Nonetheless, after skydiving and after having that amazing experience, we kind of wanted to go again, but obviously we didn't. Then we got back to the hostel, and most people were actually leaving that day. And as I said, and I opened this, video, or yesterday's video with this, was, some people kind of left at different days. And I always try to make like the most of my vacation. So I was the first one there and the last one out. I kind of just skipped classes on a Friday and a Monday. I'm an exchange student. I'm a pass or fail basis. Those of you who know, you could just pass, right? You don't need to do anything. As an exchange student, it's a dream. You keep your GPA the same. Anyways, I won't ramble about the benefits of going and studying abroad if you're a university student. But it was really, really nice, because I got back to the hostel and Chris was still there. Chris being the guy who gave me 50% off on the skydiving. And then I found somebody who actually wanted to go bungee jumping the next day. And I said, yo, Chris, will you still give me 50% off? He said yes. So I ended up going to the bungee for half price, which I think was something like $70 for the first jump. But the benefit of going bungee jumping is that every subsequent jump is then cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, to the point where your last jump is like $5. So I ended up doing all of them. So I did 5 jumps, and it cost me less than it would have cost me if I did 1 jump. So I managed to have, for like $150, again, similar to the bungee jumping, 5 bungee jumps, or skydiving, sorry, 5 different bungee jumps for the price of, what would have been 1. And so I ended up doing 5 bungee jumps and 1 skydive for what would have been the cost of either, one of the 2. So I ended up getting both, and it was like a really cool experience. I went with a random dude in the hostel, and this bungee experience is actually worth telling, because this is a little bit closer to what you'll get at a normal place, not like, the second highest one in the world that I was jumping off in New Zealand. You have to like climb this tower, like just like staircase after staircase, and you're kind of running up. And because I had 5 jumps, I had to climb it 5 times, obviously. But it's cool because they, as per norm, like they weigh you so that they know like how much elasticity to put in the cord and things like that. And they actually ask you if you want to be like dunked in the water, like just your head in the water, your shoulders in the water, all of your body in the water. So it's kind of this like awesome experience where you get to choose like, or not go in the water at all. And so like my first jump, I told him, I'm like, hey, I want to do like really cool jumps. I want to do like back flips or front flips and things off of it. He says, look, I need to see how you jump first. I don't know if you know how to jump. So the first jump I had to do normal. He doesn't dunk me in the water. It was chill. I go back up. I ask him, yo, how did I jump? He said, okay, we could do some stuff. But first, let's try going backwards. So we go backwards, and then I told him, like, I don't want you to let me know if you're dunking me or not. He dunks me full in the water. I'm soaked. I'm like, yes. And I have this buddy like filming for me the entire time, which was just fucking awesome because I have that footage. And, 21-year-old me compiled it into a video, which is pretty funny too. My hair was probably about this long, but by the time I made that video, quarantine hair. All right, I'm going to stop rambling and I'm going to say it was really, really cool. I ended up doing a lot of like front flips and back flips for my, third, fourth, and fifth jump. It was really cool. Like just also analyzing like the technique. And also after this bungee jump, instead of like pulling you up like they did in New Zealand, they lower you into like a little boat in the river, and the guy just like picks you up, unhinges you, and just kind of brings you to the area, to kind of run back up the stairs if you're doing multiple jumps like me. And it was really cool because there were some Irish guys there, and you don't realize that you don't speak English, or like they don't speak English until you hear them, because you're just like, hey, man, I have no idea what you're saying. The guy was trying to tell me that his name is James, and I was like, what's James? And I was trying to write it, and I didn't realize he was trying to say James. I don't know. It's the small things in life. And I ended up getting a shirt for the bungee and everything. It was overall like a really good way to end a big trip. It was a trip filled with adventure. Obviously we did Whitsundays and all of the Fraser Island and things like that. But it was just like adding to the adventure, just trying to level it up and keep that like energy and that vibe going. And just being able to do that was just like a true blessing, especially all of that was done in like, I don't know, like a 9 to 11 day window of like, whatever spring break is, plus me skipping uni classes. So all in all, that was my journey from Brisbane to Cairns. And I think for next week I'm going to think about what continent, what country. Maybe I'll continue with Australia. We'll see. I want to keep you guys guessing. So I appreciate the fact that you guys are listening, that you guys are here and sharing it with your friends, and hopefully safe from maybe coronavirus's old news by the time this comes out. I can only hope. But take care of yourselves, and toast out.